The only reason that we're dealing with this in March of 2025 is that Democrats couldn't actually do their jobs. Trump wants it, so we don't. Maybe we should shut the government down.
With Donald Trump back in office, one of his biggest adversaries, top Democrat Dick Durbin of Chicago, is leading the charge to derail President Trump's agenda at every turn. And now Senator Durbin has a new scheme, a government takeover of your credit card. Today, Americans have thousands of choices in credit cards, all with equal strong security. But Senator Durbin's plan will result in less competition and less security. That means more risk for your credit and your identity. Tell Republican senators, stop Dick Durbin's government takeover of your credit card before it's too late. Learn more at www.guardyourcard.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Good Thursday to you. Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program. I'm Josh Holmes, comfortably smug. Michael Duncan, John Ashbrook, left or right across your radio dial, as always. Fellas, a lot of stuff going on. I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of fun on this show.
It's a good show. This is going to be a great lineup we've got here. A lot to talk about.
We do have a lot to talk about, and I feel like we're in a rambunctious mood here.
Yeah, well, I mean, the weather's great. We got a lot to work with. Democrats are shooting themselves in the foot left to right.
Yeah.
Let's get it.
It's like sun's out, guns out. And also, just the weather puts you in a great mood.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like we're in a good spot mentally to have a really strong episode.
Yeah, I gotta agree.
Yeah, let's not discount how Democrats are crushing themselves right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they are in an absolute world of hurt. They're voting to let LeBron James play in the WNBA, and then they're like, "Oh, let's shut the government down."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What a terrible set of circumstances for their party.
So bad, so bad. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. What Ashbrook just highlighted is a major part of the news that is to come here this week that we will get to about government shutdowns and that kind of thing. We've got a lot to say on that. Got a little lightning round. We're going to talk a little bit about the Tesla event, what Democrats lost their minds about. I thought was hilarious and funny. Meanwhile, Elon's rescuing people in space. I think that goes up like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Something like that. We got King of the Hill, and then Megan Novak of AFP talks to us about a very important state Supreme Court race.
Very important.
Which,
Very important.
you know, you don't get that a lot here on the Variety Program. We usually are national in our scope. But every once in a while, there's something that comes up in the world of elections that is going to have an undue influence on how politics works. So we want to highlight these kind of things, and we'll get that from Megan Novak at the end of the program. The media is broken. For decades, big cable and legacy media filtered information to hide the truth. But thanks to podcasts like the one that you're listening to and new media around this country, the truth can break through, providing voices and views that legacy outlets we know well will not air. But big cable still has a major way of controlling information: access. They do this by limiting access to something called spectrum, the invisible airwaves that power affordable wireless internet, and by forcing you to keep their bundles, the old cable package bundle, keeping independent media out of reach. Trump and Republicans in Congress have a huge chance right now to get this right by making more spectrum available and breaking the big cable's stranglehold on your information. You got to tell your senator and your member of Congress to work with President Trump, sell more spectrum, and make sure that you can hear programs like the Ruthless Variety Program. Fellas, let's start with this government shutdown thing. Let me just preface this by saying, if you followed anything about politics since the moment Donald Trump was inaugurated, you come to the conclusion that there's not a single pitch Democrats have not swung at.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how shitty the pitch. It could hit halfway between the mound and the plate, and they are swinging away, right? USAID. Oh, it's the invasion of Normandy.
Yeah.
You know, any sort of budget issue, like the worst kind of trans studies in Tanzania. Oh my God, it's a constitutional crisis.
Because they're entirely captured by the far left wing base. It's the reason why they lost the election back in November.
Yeah.
You know, they had to defend things like men playing in women's sports, right? Like because they're captured by their far left base, they have to swing at every pitch because everything's an outrage to those people.
Totally.
And so if they're the elected representatives of these people, they have to take a swing at every pitch.
And they're so fraudulent and they're so fake that every single one of them that doesn't have any political skin in the game in the moment leaves government and like shows up in Bill Maher like John Tester we were just talking about.
It's so funny.
And he's like, oh my God, it makes no sense to have men playing women's sport. The guy was the fucking co-sponsor of the bill.
Right. Right.
That ensured that men could play women's sports.
Right.
And then he's sitting there telling like, oh yeah, Democrats have lost their damn mind.
Yeah, I think this is a really important thing to really highlight, to focus in on, is because even elected Democrats know how nuts their platform is, but they don't have the integrity or the courage to say it until they're out of the game.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like John Tester, prime example. The guy co-authored the bill to have men play in women's sports, and as soon as he's out, he's like, can you believe Democrats do this?
Oh, look, I found religion.
Can you believe it?
These
Yeah.
people, elected Democrats, believe in nothing. These people are absolute nihilists. They stand for nothing, which is why they're getting beat so much, why they're swinging at every pitch, because the far left completely controls where they can be at in every issue.
Listen, Smug, I beg to differ. They do stand for something. And every press secretary for every terrorist organization who has a green card in this country will have their voice heard, thanks to Rashida Tlaib and Democrats.
Yeah.
She's the leader of their party. Everybody's like,
Yeah.
oh, who leads Democrats? Rashida Tlaib leads
Dude, you're
Democrats.
not wrong.
I mean, it's true, but you know, you get these podcasts with like Gavin Newsom's doing this thing where he had, you know, he's just
Charlie on and Bannon on.
yeah, like he invites them all in, and he basically like sits there and pretends like he's a normal human being. Like this is a dude who is literally incarcerating people for walking on the beach 4 years ago. I mean, literally incarcerating people for walking on the beach while he's having dinner at French Laundry. And now he like invites.
He's like, now I'm
conservatives
a
in.
straight shooter.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Tell you how it is.
Yeah, right. So he's trying to do the politics thing.
Yeah.
Except the governing thing, they're left-wing lunatics.
Yeah.
And so how that translates into the federal government, you have a bunch of like schmoes, just absolute losers. Like Chuck Schumer is a perfect example of this, right? He's swinging at every pitch. He can't control his caucus. We saw it during the State of the Union where they're like, oh, please don't embarrass us in front. Like, this is the one thing where everybody watches, like, please just don't embarrass us. And then, of course, they all embarrass, and then, like, they just, like, pretend like it didn't happen, and they're like, on to the next. And they're like, okay, well, what's the next? The next is a bill that funds the federal government. Now, it may sound like a big deal because it funds the federal government. It's everything, you know, from Social Security checks on down to your armed forces paychecks, all through the federal government. Even the lights on in the Capitol is all funded by this bill. It's not that big a deal in large part because it is the work that Democrats failed to do last year. The only reason this is coming up in March, the fiscal year runs September 30 through September 30. The only reason that we're dealing with this in March of 2025 is that Democrats couldn't actually do their jobs. Even at the basic level, they couldn't do their jobs. And so now this is coming up in the first 3 months of a Trump administration. And the Trump administration wisely, along with House Republicans who passed a bill this very week to deal with it, have said, look, this is junk. It's crap stuff left over from the next administration. We have a lot of work to do to change this country. Let's just get this junk off our plate. No raises in spending. We'll cap it, which in and of itself, believe it or not, is a huge victory for a conservative point of view from a federal government standpoint because spending increases every year. They just cap the thing, kick it to September 30, and use the intervening time to change things like, I don't know, your tax rates, things that make a substantial difference in the economy, things like incorporating what Doge is doing and Elon is finding, and they have the intervening time to actually implement that stuff. It's beyond a finding, which Doge is doing right now, and actually implementing a change. So they got 6 months to do it, and they wisely decided, like, okay, we're going to just kick this can to September 30 and do the work that was intended to do for a new president. When they're elected, their first fiscal year is next year. It is in September 30. That is what you work on from inauguration to September 30. They've got a lot of ideas. We've heard a lot of them. Democrats hate every single one of them. But they're going to try their level best to try to implement these things. This intervening bullshit is just a bunch of junk that Washington deals with every single time nobody can do their job, which is an annual experience. Right?
Which happens frequently, sadly.
So Democrats have taken this discussion and been like, okay, well, USAID, boy, we hate what's happening there. Boy, we hate what's happening with the Department of Education. Boy, we hate. None of that reflected in what they're talking about with this CR that goes to September 30. And they're like, yeah, but Trump wants it, so we don't. Maybe we should shut the government down. These bunch of idiots. I'm not kidding you. They might be the dumbest fuck people I've ever met in my entire life. Like, I have no idea what they could possibly be thinking. Remember we talked about this last week when we were talking about the State of the Union, and you were like, you have to try to convince your caucus that at some point there's going to be something worth fighting for, and you can't expend all your political capital on shit that doesn't matter in order to reserve it for stuff that does. They don't have any of that.
No.
And so now, I don't know, maybe they have the balls to shut the government down over a Biden budget. Like, think about this, fellas.
That's pretty amazing.
I mean, what are they? This is, I don't know if they're, do you think they have the balls to do it?
I think they are brain dead enough to try.
Wow.
You know, you look at in the House, I was very impressed that the House got that bill passed.
Me too.
Yeah.
And you saw Jared Golden. He's a Democrat from Maine. He sees the writing on the wall. He knows that this midterm is not going to be the same old midterm that we've always seen year in and year out.
Yeah.
And he knows that he has to figure out a way. He's a Democrat. He's got to figure out a way to work with Republicans in some respect. I don't think that his counterparts in the Senate have any clue about what it's going to take.
I think the Democrats are going to find a third way, if you will.
Well, this is the crux and the meat
Right.
of this conversation.
Where you kind of have to placate your far left base that you rely on for votes and donations and all those fundraising emails and text messages you want them to respond to. You got to prove to them that you're fighting Donald Trump. But at the end of the day, you don't want to be the party that shut down the federal government.
over nothing.
So
they literally have zero articulated reasons for doing this.
And I think we're going to talk about it later in the show, but I think they're looking for an escape hatch in all of this.
They have identified one. We have identified it, and you cannot wait for our commentary on this.
It's so good.
It is. It's just so good. It's just such a perfect thing. I almost want to jump right to it, but I don't want to do that because we have an important thing. There's two things that we got to get to. One is that Wolf, fellas, Wolf is our resident, this guy ran logistics in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So I got my hands on this for us.
Did the hard work.
And we talked about this last episode about how they were tearing up BLM Plaza.
Yeah.
What Wolf has done he's gone out and he has secured a piece of BLM Plaza with one of the, do we know whether it's the Black, the Lives, or the Matter pieces?
This came out of the letter R.
Oh, this came out of the, so right at the end.
At Matter, yeah.
Yeah, right at the
Very
right
close
at the
to
end.
the White House.
Yeah,
Wow.
a very important piece of historical. How did you frame this?
The dumbest period in history?
Yes.
Yeah, own a piece of the dumbest period in history. It's wonderful. People might look at this and say, "Oh my gosh," the liberal journalists or the people at Media Matters who listen to this podcast religiously so they can take things out of context and try to get outraged by it. They would say this is cruel. They would be like, "Oh gosh, you're going to take a brick from BLM Plaza. You must hate black people." And it's like, "No. I love black people. This has nothing to do with that." The reality is, taking this brick is not cruel. What you put our country through during that period of time, the dumbest period of time in American history, was cruel. When you put a mask on my son in nursery school, but you had epidemiologists on CNN saying it's safe to go protest in downtown DC and burn cars in front of our office here every single day.
Yeah.
That was cruel.
We couldn't get to our office.
Yeah.
In large part because a shakedown racket known as Black Lives Matter, of which the tippity top of the organizations were buying
Houses.
homes in Beverly Hills
Yeah.
off of the contributions on Act Blue, I might add.
Yep.
From donations across this country of people who thought, like, well, maybe this is an issue that we should be a part of. And they took the money and then they plastered their name on 16th Street.
Right.
16th Street of Washington, D.C., the center of the nation's capital. Might I remind you, the White House's address is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, 16th Street.
Right.
Right on the other side of Lafayette Square. They put this Black Lives Matter, which is an organization that was essentially a shakedown racket,
100%.
was exposed as much, was a corruption outfit, and they put their name on there and pretended like it was a civil rights movement.
Right.
Meanwhile, they shut down all of our offices. We couldn't get to it, in large part for the first month because there was a frickin' violent protest out front. Molotov cocktails
Yeah.
and shattering windows and everything else. And then pretended like that was the safe space.
Yeah.
But my child in preschool had to wear a mask if they could go to school at all.
Yeah, and so like if you lived in a sane part of the United States during this period of time in 2020 and 2021, God bless you. But we did not. And so we're relishing this. We really enjoy it. It's like, the Japanese seize the flags of their enemies, and that's what we're doing here.
That's what this is.
Well, but I think what the last 5 years have told us is what the Democrat Party actually is. It's not a political party. It is a collection of left-wing NGOs with consultants at the top who are taking their cut and are just waiting for their opportunity to walk away.
They want to
Like
monetize. They want to monetize the emotional destabilization
Right.
of an electorate that is a base.
Yeah,
of the
failure's the
Democratic Party.
point. We always say
Yeah.
failure's the point. The destruction of our country is the point. They want it to be worse on purpose so they can be the solution.
It's true.
And
Yeah.
I do like when Democrats are down. Please do not get me wrong. I'm as partisan as they come. But I look at politics like I look at sports. I want an opponent who is healthy enough to put up a good fight in every single
yes,
game.
Boo.
And
What do you
they're
think about
just
that?
not there.
This guy.
What do you think about that?
This is a
Tom?
guy who's pals with journalists. Of course. I want him broken. I want him to look like this brick, broken and held up as a trophy of war.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I mean, look, we did an episode last week. Is this the end of the Democratic Party?
It sure looks like it.
No.
Yeah.
Sure
and now
looks
we
like
own
it.
a piece.
We owed a piece. We owed a piece. I mean, it just, dude, it's hard anyway. Well, look, we've got that. Thank you for all of you who've invested in the new merch line,
Yeah.
the Gaza Riviera.
Got some attention.
It turns out very popular. People love it. A lot of popular stuff with the Gaza Riviera merch. This is our new golf gear. It's golf season. You got to go get out and get it. I understand it's a little expensive. We're going to provide some options that are a little bit lower in price. But we had this unique opportunity to do a super high end.
It's very
thing.
very high end. And as the person who's breaking his knuckles, sewing every stitch in every quarter zip, I want to assure you, dear listener and viewer, this merch is of the highest quality.
Yeah.
And so that price point, although it is a little high, I will admit, it's worth it.
Well, and it comes out of the blood, sweat, and tears out of Michael Duncan.
That's right.
There's no question about that. You can go to store.ruthlesspodcast.com to get yours now. I would recommend doing that. I've got a golf vacation in the works, hopefully a multiple, where I'm going to buy the whole crew.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Well, it's been huge. A lot of people have gotten their gear. I would just emphasize, get it in now Because at some point, in the words of Donald Trump, we're going to have to shut this down so we can figure out what's going on.
Well said. Well said. All right. So when we come back, we're going to give you more about these Democratic activists, how they are inspiring leadership across the Democratic Party. Are they going to shut the government down? We're going to explore all of that, including their justification, which you will die laughing about, because I know we did. Right after this.
Hey, aren't you that PBM?
Middleman, at your service, doctor.
Don't you get rebates that save money on medicines?
Oh, PBMs like me get big rebates.
So why do patients tell me they're worried about their costs?
No one says we have to share the savings with patients.
Congress should make sure medicine savings go directly to patients, not middlemen. Visit phrma.org/middlemen to learn more. Paid for by pharma.
Okay, so you might ask yourself, why in the hell would Democrats walk themselves into a box canyon by shutting the government down over no real articulated reason other than Donald Trump is president? Like, that's all. That's all they've got.
So funny.
And like, you know, in a healthy political party, what you would say to your members is, I understand you're angry about all of this stuff, but like, this is a continuing resolution.
Right.
Meaning it's the funding that was approved during the Biden administration that just reaches back, as it was initially intended, through the rest of the fiscal year till September 30. So there's like no real difference. If they wanted to do something about that, they had to do something about it last year.
Yeah.
And yet they can't argue that. Like, their people are so unhinged. Mm-hmm. It's the same people with the bingo paddles, the
right,
that were doing the thing during the State of the Union. Like, you can't actually explain reason
Right.
to these humans.
Or like you might be able to point out to them, I don't know, we lost the House, we lost the Senate,
Yeah.
we lost the presidency in November.
Maybe we should reshuffle the deck.
Can everyone just be normal for 2 minutes?
Yeah, right.
No, they can't.
No.
It's very, very simple. And I'll quote Back to the Future: "They're idiots. Their parents are probably idiots too."
He's an idiot. Comes from upbringing. Parents are probably idiots too.
The
board's
board
back.
is back.
The board is back.
Oh, the return of the board.
Oh, that's
I
great.
love that. Okay, so they're getting desperate. And leaders within the Democratic Party, I think, probably understand how insane this is, but they can't articulate it. They can't say, like, we are literally driving our party. The last 2 votes that we've taken were to put, as you said, LeBron James in the WNBA.
Key issue of our time. If that's what he wants, that's what he should get. If he wants to put on a wig and a skirt and dunk over Caitlin Clark, okay.
Maybe they should put Bronny there. He'd play a little better.
Ooh,
Oy, oy, oy.
that's a good shot.
Yeah, it's a good
that's
shot.
pretty
Bronny in
good.
the WNBA so he can succeed.
He'd make the team.
Wow. Violence on the
Just
program.
mean, man.
Violence on the program.
You know it's good when Smug says it's me.
Yeah, he always like, and then the previous vote was to make sure that we never punished people who commit crime, illegal immigrants who could commit crimes within the United States. Like, these are their standout votes over the last 6 weeks, and now here they are. They're like, yeah, we're going to shut the government down. And you're like, why? And they're like, So Democrats can't just say, like, that's dumb. Like, this is stupid. Let's not do that. There's going to be many big fights that we have principles on that we need to articulate to the American people. They have to roundabout it. And they go, like Angus King, I think, Michael, is the one that you've highlighted, who has an argument that I find completely hilarious.
Yeah, so he has the funniest one, and this is the sort of mental gymnastics. They're trying to work their radical left-wing base through all the stages of grief. That, like, we lost the election, we lost the House, we lost the Senate, we lost the presidency. So how is it that I can get out of this? I'm Angus King. I'm a senator who claims to be independent but caucus with the Democrats and vote for every left-wing lunatic thing they want to do. All right, what I'm going to say is we're going to actually vote for the continuing resolution. And the reason why is if we shut down the government, it's going to give Elon Musk a free hand to fire more federal workers, and we can't have that. So we are holding the line by voting for Donald Trump's bill.
That's what he wants. That's what essentially it is, right? That's what he wants.
It's hysterical.
It's the most amazing bank shot because they can't just be like, boy, this is really stupid. You guys are idiots.
Yeah.
They have to be like, no, if you don't go along with what they want to do, it's what they really want to do.
Right.
And the person responsible for executing us here is Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I mean, what? These people are so dumb. It is like, it blows my mind, the stupidity. Every once in a while, you get just like a view, and having spent a lot of time under the dome, I understand how this works, of just how insulated the discussion chamber is.
Right.
When everybody's just talking to each other, and they realize that, like, well, if I say Elon Musk,
Right.
that'll get some kind of receptivity within my
Right.
party.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter whether the logic connects.
No.
It's like underpants gnome type shit.
They're just like, all right, our voters, they really hate Donald Trump. Who's the only other person they might hate as much as him? Elon Musk.
Yeah, let's say it.
Okay, so I'm going to vote for what Donald Trump wants, and I'm going to say it's actually Elon Musk's fault. That will keep our voters happy.
Like, there's a grand plan for Donald Trump to endorse a piece of legislation because his real grand plan is for Elon Musk to run roughshod
Right.
over everything
Yeah.
the Democrats want, if in case they don't go along with what it is they originally
well,
intended.
but they kind of have to. Like, I actually feel bad for the Senate Democrats in this conundrum, which is like their base is like all these people are such lunatics that they have to invent this in their mind palace, this idea that they're saving the country from Elon Musk by keeping the government open with, essentially like Joe Biden stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like they have to claim victory in that because their own base wants them to, quote unquote, hold the line.
Oh, yeah.
There's this a piece that was up in MSNBC that's literally the title is that Senate Democrats have to do their job.
Here's the title. Senate Democrats need to hold strong against Trump's purse snatching.
Yeah. Purse snatching.
Purse snatching. It's their fucking budget, you dumb shits.
It's amazing.
I mean, it is just, it's so unbelievable to me.
And it's all they read. So they see that and they're like, yes, we do need to hold strong.
And
You know what I mean?
It's all they read, except for they have like a dozen other people that read it with them.
Dude, this
Right.
thing has like 10 fucking hyperlinks in it. Okay, so it's like the logic of holding the line and shutting down the government. They actually have a thing here from New York Magazine. It says, I'll just read from the piece on MSNBC. The GOP has set a trap for Senate Democrats.
Oh, it's a trap.
They set a trap.
It's a trap.
Don't be fooled.
Hey, fuckhead, the trap was winning the whole election. Okay, all right. The GOP had set a trap for Senate Democrats. As New York Magazine's Ed Kilgore put it, voting for a continuing resolution they don't like or be blamed by Republicans, hypocritically so, for causing a government shutdown. House Democrats remained united, save one crossover.
Ooh, so
Now it's
Benedict Arnold.
It's now up to Senate Democrats to hold the line and oppose the GOP's turning the Treasury into a slush fund for the Trump administration.
This is so insane.
No, just
This
think,
is really
just
crazy.
think about how brain damage you need to do to come up. The next line is actually even better for me. I don't advocate for the filibuster lightly. Oh, you don't. You don't say. But with the Constitution under attack.
Yeah.
The Constitution. This is a continuing resolution.
Yeah.
This is literally nothing.
This is like some Louise Mensch shit where she's like, Steve Bannon, I'm being told, is going to be executed by the Marshal of the Supreme Court. I am pro-life, and I take no pleasure in reporting this.
Dude, but with the Constitution under attack, Democrats should use it as a weapon. They should explain to the American people that as the Constitution makes clear, the decision on how to spend their tax dollars should remain with the Congress they've elected. Hold on.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
It's the Congress that's doing it.
Right.
Like, what the hell are they talking about? This is somebody, like, who is this clown?
I don't know. It's somebody at MSNBC.
I mean,
The thing is that, so this is a really kind of, I wouldn't say dangerous place that the Democrats have found themselves in. It's dangerous for their own party's existence. But there's been, if you look at the discussion that's happening online among elected Democrats, among like the top kind of like left-leaning journalists, which is all of them, online, there's this like groundswell of do something. Like Democrats have to do something.
Yeah.
Meaning like any action that they take is the correct action. And they weren't satisfied with like Democrats holding up little paddles like they're like at an auction during Trump's speech. They're not like, the only thing they were happy about is they're like, that dude with the cane who stood up and shouted and had to be removed, that's the kind of shit we want. They're like, it doesn't need to have any value or meaning or accomplish anything or any of their goals get across the finish line as long as something happens. So in their book, like, yeah, just filibustering this is some action, shutting down the government and having everyone blame the Democrats for it. They're like, that's doing something. So it's like, any action that they take, as long as it's something, even if it's shooting themselves in the foot, because they love that lately.
Yeah.
That's an action. Shoot yourself in the foot 10 times in a row and be like, look at that, I did something.
Look what I've done. I've harmed myself irreparably. I can no longer stand. But I've done it. I mean, the thing is like, if you boil this down for practitioners in the field, you get this immediately. But for those of you who just sort of follow this for a sport or because you feel like, you know, you've got skin in the game here, which we all do, the larger part of this is you don't win national elections based on like the furthest reaches of your party on Twitter, on X. Like, you just don't. I mean, that's an important base mobilization. People have used it effectively. I think Republicans have used it incredibly effectively. I'm not diminishing its impact. But what I am saying is these people are responsive only to that.
Right.
They're only responsive. Like, can you imagine? I mean, you're talking about primetime MSNBC. We're in a country of 330 million people, and there's 250,000 people who tune into this bullshit on a night-to-night basis. And yet all of them are reading this as though
like,
it's giving them their playbook for how to deal with Congress.
This is the map.
They're entirely held hostage by a very vocal minority of Americans.
That's it.
I mean, like, Smug, you were sort of joking about, like, I'm going to, like, hammer myself and ruin my body. And, you know, like, but, like, that's the Democratic Party of today. This is a party that too late realized that Joe Biden didn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody knew it. They obviously knew it. They just didn't want to admit to themselves. And what was their solution? Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
You know, like, this is...
And then tried to pretend like they would choose the second coming.
This is a party that's perfectly comfortable with losing on purpose.
Here's the thing. They thought they could get away with it.
Yeah.
Because they've gotten away with everything for so long. The media just gives them a pass after pass after pass. Their entire party is built on fiction that's created by media that only writes what they want them to write. And so it lulls them into this false sense of security.
Yeah.
And they can't talk to normal people.
Well, they've erected the barriers for real change that would make this country great that are so sturdy that they thought they never really had to defend it.
Yeah.
Like, they basically could run a invalid and then run somebody they spent the previous 3.5 years telling you how stupid she was, and then all of a sudden
They
we're
themselves.
like...
They themselves.
They themselves.
The same
And-
journalists.
Yeah, and then they were like, oh my God, she's brilliant, and she's the second
right.
coming.
Here's $1.5 billion.
Yeah.
Because of these barriers that they've erected. And, like, you know, you take this just in the issues that we're dealing with right now. Okay, well, let's talk tariffs, for example. Has anybody really sat down and thought, well, I don't know, there's incredible trade imbalance across this world since World War II about what America gets versus what we import and the tariffs that are levied against American exports. And like a lot of people have talked about, lip service throughout the ages, right? New trade deals, all these things. You know, Democrats have been great, like unions, and oh yeah, we're going to do something about that. They never do.
Never.
And part of the reason that they don't do anything about it is because it takes somebody to actually levy something that creates the conversation, because you have a totally unresponsive global community, because they're getting a great deal out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
You can talk about it all you want, but if you're not going to do anything about it, I'm not going to give a shit.
in America thus far has never done anything about it. And now you have a president who is retaliating, and you have a media who is acting like he's going too far. What I think everybody needs to remember, every time you read a story from a major news outlet in this country who frames it as EU or Canada retaliates against America, you need to remember that they already had tariffs against us. And the only thing Trump is trying to do is even the score. And then you need to remember that the entity writing the story is a multinational corporation with interests that span the globe. Their interests are different from your interests.
They are.
And what President Trump is trying to do is stick up for your interests.
And here's the other thing. What they use as a data point that goes beyond their opinion is Wall Street, the markets. Right? Which are inherently agnostic to how you give a shit about anything. They're agnostic to your job. They're agnostic to your way of living. It's marginally better for them if you're doing better because you can invest and do whatever. But largely it doesn't matter as long as the global community is still producing and they're still growing and they're still doing whatever. That's what it's built on. Don't look to Wall Street as an example of something where they've taken a point of view on the well-being of the American worker. They just don't give a shit.
Right.
But don't feel bad about that.
Right.
That's the way that's works. That's just how it works. Right? So but they use that as a data point to be like, well, the markets aren't responding. Markets are going down. Markets are doing this. Markets are doing that. And it's like, I don't know. We levied a 50% tariff on Canada and the markets tanked. And then by 2:00 of the same day that it happened, Canada comes to the president and is like, all right, we need to work something out here. Now we have a discussion. And that's my whole point at the preface of the whole piece is that they've erected these barriers to the conversation in and of itself that the markets are the steadfast guideposts.
And that's my favorite thing in this whole discussion is for 4 years in the first Trump administration, we were told that the stock market isn't the economy. Every Democrat in this country was like, well, that's good for Donald Trump's rich friends on Wall Street, but not good for the American worker. And it's like, okay, fine. 2 months into Donald Trump's second term, they're like, oh my God, Wall Street. Yeah. Wall Street is the center, the heart of the American economy. It's going down. What is Donald Trump doing?
Yeah. The beloved tech sector, which they spent the last 2.5 years trying to ruin.
Yeah, exactly.
So all of these things, but then, take it to a spending thing. It's like, okay, how do we get $36 trillion in debt? Well, I don't know. First time you try to cut this very mediocre small agency that has, very little to do with the interests of the taxpayers of the American people, they act like it's the Normandy invasion.
Right.
And then the media dutifully reports that it is the Normandy invasion. And then you have Chuck Schumer and these clowns standing out front acting as though it is.
Right.
And they're not used to the Ruthless Variety program. They're not used to you as the listener getting your information elsewhere.
Right.
They're not used to the real story, and they don't know what to do about it.
And over time, it's created a culture in our own government that we pay for at the State Department, USAID. The one comment that really, really sticks out to me is something that Marco Rubio said when he started clear-cutting a lot of the people at USAID and at the State Department. He said that these people think that they work for the globe. Yeah. And he's like, no, you work for America. Yep. Your responsibility isn't to some other country first. Your responsibility is to America first. And that whole way of thinking that it's shifted to this global outlook and not paying attention to America has really done damage to our country. Yeah. And all President Trump and his administration are doing right now is resetting that so that they pay attention to the taxpayers.
That's really well said. It's exactly right. So the capstone of the conversation is that's why they think they can shut the government down, because it's always been the Republicans' fault. No matter who's in charge, no matter who's in what, they've erected these media institutions and all these things that protect them. What they don't understand, it ain't so anymore. And so our question of the day for all of you is, are the Democrats all talk here, or are they going to actually shut it down?
Good question.
Do they have the balls to actually pull the trigger on this thing? I don't know. You just heard us talk about all of it, but I'll be interested in your opinion. We're going to get to that, and then we'll read to you, by the way, the question from Tuesday's episode.
Wild.
Banger.
Wild.
The question was, what are the fake names if you had an ActBlue account?
Yeah.
What are the fake names you would use?
Yes.
Very creative stuff out of the Minions. We'll get to all of that right after this.
Hardworking Americans know when it's time to roll up our sleeves and get the job done. Now is the time to unleash our nation's energy to create jobs, secure our future, and make life better, more affordable, and full of opportunity for all Americans. That's the power of America's oil and natural gas. Learn more at lightsonenergy.org. Paid for by the American Petroleum Institute.
All right, so we had a little bit of a provocative question of the day. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we realized how provocative it actually was.
Oh, we knew what we were doing.
We should have, yeah.
We knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
We probably did. But we covered on Tuesday's episode the straw donor allegations against Act Blue and whether or not this is a money laundering operation. And a part of that is the names that would be associated with donors that were giving untold millions to Democrats. And our question was, if you had a name that you wanted to put on a straw donor list, what would that name be? What would that name be? Your comments are terrific. Remember, on YouTube, you got to like and subscribe. Mm-hmm. Add your comments and add anything in that you want. Your comments here, 10 of 10. Let's start with a voice.
That's right. And Mrs. Duncan, if you're listening to this segment, this is the moment where you might hit that skip button. Because her first comment comes all the way from 8th grade, and Derek Riley. And Derek Riley offers this as his Act Blue name. He says, Act Blue name is Gabe Owners. It's from Derek Riley all the way from junior high.
Gabe Boners.
Gabe Owners.
Gabe Owners. That's what we... That's brand new.
I mean, look. Yeah,
that's brand new. I mean, I felt like I knew all of these. Gay boners.
I thought I knew them too.
I don't care if you're 8 or 80. Dick jokes are funny. They're just funny.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Runks, what do we got for comment 2?
This is from M. My Act Blue name, Pete O'File.
My God.
Oh,
I'm not saying all Dems know and like him, but let's just say he's more welcome on Blue Sky and Reddit than anywhere else.
Oh my God. Absolute blast.
It's so good.
All right. Smuggles, what do we got for the third?
This is from Chris Bledell. And Chris writes, phone book names / strawman donors, Dixon Cider.
Jeez. That's a classic.
Dixon.
Oh my God. Whether you're 8 or 80.
They're just always funny.
I might make a dinner reservation tonight with Dixon Cider. You got to go someplace, though, where they call it. They're like cider.
Yeah.
Cider. Dixon Cider.
Imagine the maitre d' on that one.
Holy smokes. All right. So, listen, when we come back, Trump bought a car this week. Did you guys know that?
Oh, yeah. I did.
Yeah, he bought a car. There was a hell of a spectacle outside in the South Lawn. Pretty funny. Democrats lost their minds over it. Our stranded astronauts are finally coming home as well, which is fascinating. All right. So listen, I find this completely fascinating to me because it's been a long tradition within the White House where a president goes out and frequently is seen with and is help marketing American-made, American job-produced products, right? You had, just a short time ago, you had Biden out in like a Jeep, whatever.
And didn't you have like a Corvette out there too?
Yeah, he had a Corvette out there. He had a whole bunch of, but every president does it at some level. Well, what happened is that Donald Trump had a Tesla situation. Now, because of the convergence of Elon Musk, this administration, and what he's doing with Doge, there becomes a problem. Now, the backdrop of this is that you have left-wing psychopaths around this country firebombing Tesla dealerships, attacking people who are driving Teslas and trying to make it like literally just a vigilante war against Elon Musk because he told a couple of government workers they got to go home. Right? So Trump sees that, responds, and is like, no, American-made product. It's here in the backyard. I'm going to buy one on the South Lawn, which I absolutely love. Can we get clip 1, please?
This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. People should be going wild, and
Hell yeah.
they love the product, but because he's finding all sorts of terrible things that have taken place against our country, they want to penalize him in a economic sense, and I just think that's very unfair. So I just wanted to make a statement. I'm going to buy one. Now, here's the bad news. I'm not allowed to drive because I haven't driven a car in a long time, and I love to drive cars. But I'm going to have it at the White House, and I'm going to let my staff use it. I'm going to let people at the place use it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, first, we want to use it.
We want to use it.
We want to use it. We're going to call Carolyn. We're going to make a request. He would be very ill-advised to allow us to use it.
No, we'll treat it well.
Well, we'll treat it well, but we're going to ask. I mean, he said that people around the White House can ask, and like this guy's sitting in the press.
Which one I think he said he wanted the one that like...
He has the plaid version.
Yeah.
It has the ludicrous mode.
That's the one.
Goes fast.
You can go fast. It's like
I wanna
0
do
to
that.
60 under 2 seconds.
Yeah.
While you're commenting on the question of the day, also throw in there like a drive it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we need some fan interaction. People, if this is going to happen, people need to will it.
Yeah, we need to manifest it. We do that frequently here on the Variety Program.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, it is like, I don't know if it's a law or guidance or whatever, but like sitting and even former presidents are not allowed to drive. Because for numerous reasons,
Yeah,
security
security.
reasons, and then also like liability reasons and whatever. But let Trump ride shotgun. Have like one of the secret, because like Secret Service people are trained to drive under like crazy ass situations.
You think
like,
they would
under
allow
murder.
one of us to drive a car with Trump sitting shotgun?
Here's the thing: is let
No
me
chance.
let
I
me in
don't
the
think
back.
so.
Secret Service guy driving, Trump shotgun. Put that thing in ludicrous mode.
Wait, hold on a minute. The president
let's
of
see
the
what the thing
United
can do.
States is in the front and you're in the back?
Yeah.
And they're driving you?
Yeah. Throw that in ludicrous mode and let's see what it does.
Only Smug can concoct
would be
a
an
version of
awesome
reality
time.
where he's the one that's
This
being
would be a
escorted.
great time. Everyone would
Driving
enjoy
Miss
this.
Daisy, but it's smug in the back.
Everyone have a great time.
Turn here, Mr. President.
No, but we want a shot at this thing. Well, anyway, the left loses their mind, right? Because it's like a Tesla commercial. And I speak for a lot of our listeners. I like the fact that Elon, look, I love Elon. I love Doge. I love everything he's doing. I'm not wild about electric cars.
Yeah, no, I don't like him either.
I'm never going to buy a Tesla. I mean, I wouldn't say never, but certainly not at this point in my life. Like, I like my gas-powered car. I just like it, and
Right.
I don't see myself ever moving off of that.
Right.
But, like, I can understand why a guy's out there promoting it, and certainly under the circumstances where they're like, attempting to bankrupt Tesla
Right.
just because of his proximity to the government.
I might. I mean,
You might buy one?
the prices on them is pretty good. Like cars have gotten super expensive.
Yeah.
Super expensive over the past few years. And like the deals you can get on Tesla, because like also there's a bunch of libs who like bought a Tesla a year or two ago,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
and now they're like, I'm gonna just dump this thing at any price. So like grabbing some soccer mom's Tesla for like 90% off doesn't seem like a bad idea to me.
Imagine being so brain dead that you're like, my car purchase needs to reflect my politics.
Yeah, that's...
I mean, think about what you would have as a conservative if, like, the music you liked, the movies you watched, the stuff that you did only had to reflect, like, one point of view. And yet that's the way these people operate.
It's a terrible way to live.
God, these people. Well, that's the reason why hopefully they'll be in the minority for a long, long period of time. Anyway, well, while all that's happening, Elon's like fucking around and trying to figure out how to rescue two people that have been stuck in space since June.
He's got a lot of jobs. He's got a lot of jobs.
I mean, he's cutting government, he's making cars, and then, by the way, like NASA can't figure out how to bring two people down from space. And so Elon to the rescue, SpaceX rocket headed to the space station to bring home stranded astronauts. This is clip 2, please.
Arriving in Florida, NASA SpaceX Crew 10 preparing to launch to the space station on a 6-month rotation.
We've been working a long time to be ready for launch, and we are very, very excited to be here.
A mission that will also allow Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore to come home 9 months after leaving Earth. It was last June 5th when Sonny and Butch launched on a brand new Boeing Starliner spaceship for a 10-day mission. But Starliner soon developed helium leaks and engine thruster problems.
737
Worried that
Max.
Starliner wasn't safe, NASA ordered Wilmore and Williams to stay on the station.
So, I mean, look, we've covered this story before, but there are essentially two Americans that have been stuck in space under the understanding they were going to be there for 10 days. They've been there for 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so Elon is going to go up.
That's that Boeing quality. I mean, like,
oh, Jesus, he's going.
How did they
after
get away
Boeing.
with this shit?
He's going.
How did they go away with this shit?
That's a great question.
I mean, like, their rockets suck, their planes suck. This is insane.
He's going
Elon,
after Boeing.
listen, and here's the really sad part. This is tragic. Is Elon could take a look at how much money Boeing gets out of taxpayers for failing over and over and over. And the media and Dems will be like, oh, he's just doing this because he's got SpaceX and he's trying to cut out a competitor. He's got a product that works.
Yeah, he's gonna get this thing.
He's
done.
having to go
literally
clean up
saving
after
the
another
people.
Boeing mess.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you being on a Southwest 737 Max? Does
Never
that
gonna
sound
happen.
like a good idea?
Never gonna
Yeah.
happen.
I'd like
Never
to see
gonna
that.
happen.
I think when you have a kid, I'm gonna book
Hell
you.
no.
I'm gonna book you a flight.
not happening.
Triple seats. Let's get the whole family involved. 737 Max, plenty of leg room.
Boarding group D.
Right across from the
Do they have
latrine.
boarding groups? Or it really is like now, just like they open the door and it's like, get in there, animals. I really think that is that right. And like everyone's
What
mad
about-
at Southwest
is
now
it
because
this?
they're trying to have some rules. Disgusting people.
Did you read about the thing with the 11 of 12 clogged toilets on the thing?
This
to
is
Calcutta?
honestly, airline travel has become just horrendous.
People are throwing diapers and rags into the toilets, apparently.
I am I agree with you, 100% Holmes. It's become too accessible.
It's too accessible. It's too accessible. But listen, we got a big game coming up. It's our signature offering here on the Ruthless Variety program. It's King of the Hill. I, for the first time in 5 weeks, will not be a participant because Sherry Masheri went down at the hands of
Rick Wilson.
Rick
Defending
Wilson.
champion. I'm bringing back Rick Wilson. And Ashbrook is playing against me. Who do you have?
Adam Kinzinger.
Wow.
Kinzinger. Wow.
Slava Ukraini.
Okay.
All right, well, let's go ringside.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. It's time for King of the Hill. In the blue corner, fighting out of his own Twitter account, Adam Kinzinger. And now, in the red corner, fighting from the Daily Beast or the MSNBC spinoff, nobody knows, it's Rick Wilson.
Extra guttural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm I gotta say, I'm glad he did. Usually, when he's in the competition, you get a little
Yeah, he sprinkles in a little more enthusiasm.
on his side.
Yeah.
But he gave it to me.
He
It's
did.
fair.
He did.
He's just a fair guy.
Well, I want you to know that I'm the bailiff for today's match. I will be running a very, very fair outfit here. And today's
As usual.
jurist
Yeah.
is comfortably smug.
Right here. All-time greatest judge.
Okay.
Let's go for the champion, please. Your submission.
My submission is. Sorry, I have many here. We haven't played in 2 weeks, and so it gets a little.
Court has little patience for not being organized
gotta be ready
when
for
we
this.
have started the game.
I mean, I'm going to note this.
Excuse me. Can I get exhibit number 1, please, Spaghettis?
Jeez.
Rick Wilson writes, the only good Nazi is a dead Nazi, true then, true now.
Is there any context? It's just a straight
It's
tweet?
just Rick Wilson being Rick Wilson.
So this is the thing. You've seen a lot of the left has adopted the idea that Republicans are Nazis by and large, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when he says "true then, true now," you don't really see many Nazis these days. Most of them got killed, in World War II.
Turns out we took
That's just
care of
how-
that in the
yeah.
40s.
Might be a few floating around there in Argentina or somewhere,
Sure.
But what happens here is, the left trying to paint anyone who doesn't agree with me as a Nazi is just a permission structure for them to, like you see, I saw the video from Manhattan of a family was driving in a Cybertruck, and the thing's got like, cameras for parking and shit on it, all the Teslas do. And from the side camera, you see a dude just run off the sidewalk and start beating on the car. And why is it? It's because the left has been given messages like this, like, oh, we're out here fighting Nazis. So if you attack a family driving it, if you drive a Tesla, you're a Nazi. Unreal.
Very well conditioned. The challenger, please.
Okay, Spaghetti Exhibit 21, please. In keeping with the theme of this program, Congressman Jared Golden, a Democrat from Maine who voted for the continuing resolution to keep the government open, tweeted that he wants to keep the government open, and Adam Kinzinger took issue with that.
Oh, my God.
He writes, "This is awful." Rep. Golden just gave the GOP a talking point of bipartisan bill, and he also just voted to give up all the leverage in pushing back against the administration. The spending power is Congress's only power. While I usually applaud bipartisanship, this is travesty. And so, Your Honor, Slava Ukraini, who used to be a Republican congressman, is now to the left of a sitting Democrat in the House of Representatives, and that's my offering for round one.
And that's super strong. And even how he closed, he was like, listen, I'm usually for bipartisan, but I've become an absolute hypocrite for money.
Like he might have been a bipartisan person in his heart, but he didn't say the only good Nazi is a dead Nazi.
I mean, I got to say, the thing is that you see a lot of that take from the left of like, oh, every Republican is a Nazi. But I just love seeing Kinzinger just give away the game of being like, listen, I used to say shit about how bipartisanship is good, but now I make all my money being a left-wing lunatic.
Not anymore.
That's why I say first round goes to Kinzinger.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm
a
with
stunner.
No, I think it was a good sound decision. It was novel and new. Let's go to the challenger for round 2, please.
Okay, Spaghettis, let's go exhibit number 17.
Geez, 17?
Wow.
Yeah, he's brought some ammo.
Adam Kinzinger is commenting on top of an account from something called Kiev Post that's attacking Trump, and Kinzinger writes, "He's evil. How can an unhealthy 78-year-old who has live, where past tense would do, no copy editor on this, who has lived most of his life already, be comfortable with what he's going to tell his maker when he meets him? He must not really believe in God."
Oh my
4
God.
ellipses, 1 too many, because there is no way to justify this betrayal. Adam Kinzinger right there at 11:17 a.m. on March 4th.
That's a lot of hyperventilating for the morning.
The bailiff feels compelled to point out that this is not just a Ukrainian allegation. It is, in fact, an allegation that Donald Trump does not believe in God.
I mean, this is just
interesting.
The takes from these people. Alrighty.
Okay, the champion.
Okay. Well, we'll see how this goes down. Exhibit number 7. So last week,
oh my God,
we played a tweet from Rick Wilson where he was saying that many Roman emperors were assassinated by the Praetorian Guard, and he said apropos of nothing.
Holy
and this is now a
shit.
theme of Rick Wilson's tweets where he's encouraging people to kill Donald Trump. He tweets out a photo. This is the corpses of the DeWitt brothers. This is a painting or some depiction of a brutal mob lynching at The Hague from the 1600s by the Dutch. And he just tweets out a photo of it, of 2 men basically being killed at the stake, and puts apropos of nothing.
Wow.
I've got
Does that one win?
I have got nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I mean, that's a winner, and Secret Service, I think you've also got a job.
I think there's a job to do.
There's a case.
There
There's a
is
case to be made.
Please,
That is crazy.
FBI, if you're listening.
I mean, the fact that they've been emboldened to this level.
Oh my God, think about that.
Jesus.
Holy cats, I'm actually disturbed.
Yeah,
We're pretty cynical here on this
Yeah, that's
game.
the thing, is there is no bottom for these folks.
Oh.
Jesus.
Yeah, shout out to Nikki Spaghetti, who has to troll the bottom of the internet
I
to
know.
find this content.
His poor brain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know.
he should get hazard pay.
He should.
I'm calling for it.
We're all tied up. Goes to round 3.
All right, champion, what do we got?
Okay, it's not you. I'm the champion. And I'm going to be playing... Yeah, I'm going to do exhibit number 3. So this is a new video from the Lincoln Project.
Oh my God!
Which I'm shocked is actually still around and in business. I'm shocked that there's still people, and frankly, I'm terrified that they're willing to open their wallets to the Lincoln Project at this point after they failed so miserably in 2024.
They should be prosecuted.
But they're still doing, and this is why I think it's such a good tweet. They're still doing what they always did, and that is they make niche content for a radical left-wing base to basically troll Donald Trump to raise money. None of this is impactful for the broader electorate. It doesn't convince a single person. They put out this video, and this is Rick Wilson's comment. Come for seeing Donald Trump as Putin's bitch. Stay for J.D. Vance in a gimp suit.
Oh.
And it's like, dude, this is the last gasp. This is them. This is them at the bottom of the barrel. Nothing left, and they're trying to find a way to keep the Lincoln Project going.
Man.
And that is just a sad fact of our politics.
That's
today.
it. That's it. You just described it, because like their ads or whatever don't move anyone who's voting. It's just this insane kind of like resistance.
Yeah, they're
boomer.
like, give us $1 million and we're going to run this in the Palm Beach DMA. We're going to get under Donald Trump's skin.
Well, you've lived through the last 8 years and you still think that Trump is a Putin bitch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, despite all facts to the contrary, you've landed in a position where you're like, no, they said that, so that's what that is.
Right.
Such weirdos. Alrighty, on to Ashbrook.
Okay. So, variation on theme. Here, Your Honor, Exhibit 13, please, spaghettis. And we have our challenger quote tweeting some account who's talking about how Zelensky has the biggest balls in the room. And Kinzinger replies, totally. He's a real man who defends his country, doesn't wither or flee like 100% Trump would, will punch anyone in the face for his nation versus, quote, I dip Zen and go to masculine camp with my alpha bros and eat fruit snacks and wear a beard because alpha, but Trump is my first love and I want to hold him accountable. Or, I'm sorry, I want to hold him in cuddle. So alpha.
These people are just so weird.
That's 9:10 a.m. from Adam Kinzinger, former Republican member of Congress.
Like, I remember they tried that, like, the Dems tried the whole, like, JD is weird thing, and it absolutely just backfired on them because, they're the party trying to have, like, men playing women's sports, and then they're like, you got Rick Wilson being like, stay for JD in a gimp suit.
Right.
Now you've got this guy being like, I want to just cuddle the bros.
This is
it's like...
This is a much more verbose version of what Duncan said, but I will point out to Your Honor that he is quote tweeting somebody who says that Zelensky has the biggest balls in the room, and his first word
You said that
totally.
already, and you know what? It's a valiant attempt, but at the end of the day, I think Duncan highlighting the abject failure of the Lincoln Project and how they've essentially become like, the last Japanese soldiers on an island who don't realize the war is over.
That's where my heart was, Your Honor.
He's got to go with the W.
Plus, I'm still reeling from round 2.
Yeah. That's a win for Duncan.
Yes, that was tough to beat.
Well, we can all agree
that was tough to beat.
Donald Trump's election, which apparently isn't great for the Lincoln Project, should be very good for the therapy industry.
Yeah. It should.
Based on all of these tweets.
It should. SSRIs are going to be through the moon. On these
Got to get into the market.
Big victory for Rick Wilson and our defending champion, Michael Duncan. As we move on, we're going to get to an interview with Megan Novak. I want to point out she brought a gift to us, fellas. You know how we love gifts here on the Variety Program. Mm-hmm. This is as described to us, a bourbon. In fact, it's a whiskey because it's not made in the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Correct.
But it doesn't make it any less good.
Right.
This outfit's called Maelstrom, and it's made... by a cat who's apparently just a good friend out there of things that everyone does, Carrie Shaw. Mm-hmm. And Carrie Shaw apparently loads these things into fishing boats, helps distill it on the water.
No kidding.
Yeah.
In Lake Superior, so it's rocked to maturation. in Lake Superior.
That's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
Can't wait to try all of that, Carrie.
be
Thank
good.
you for that. And thank you to this interview with Megan Novak. A very special guest here on the Ruthless Variety program.
Indeed.
Megan Novak. She's a state director of AFP Wisconsin. And you might ask yourself, well, what exactly is happening here in the great state of Wisconsin? Well, it turns out kind of a lot.
Yeah.
And Megan here is going to give us an update on a very important Supreme Court race that's happening. How are you?
I'm great. I'm busy trying to save our state and save our country, but I'm great.
Native of Wisconsin,
Yes.
obviously. And you've seen your state go blue, it's gone red, it's gone, obviously last election, terrific news. But these state Supreme Court things play a big role in a whole bunch of things that shape the complexion of your state's politics, don't they?
Absolutely. We've got a 7-seat Supreme Court in Wisconsin. They serve 10-year terms. And so we have an election.
10-year terms?
10-year terms. Not a lot of opportunity for accountability for voters. Yeah.
No, you kind of get one bite at the apple at these things.
Yep. And so it's an open seat this time. There's a liberal justice who decided to retire instead of run for re-election. And it is our last chance to flip the court back from a liberal majority to a conservative rule of law majority until 2028.
Remind us, so the last time we talked about Wisconsin Supreme Court, we talked about a very pivotal race a couple years ago. We ended up coming up just an eyelash short, had a huge consequence in terms of redistricting, a whole bunch of things down ballot that obviously we would like to go the other way. This is just as consequential.
Yeah, the big thing that people don't probably realize, because outside of maybe the three of us, there's not a lot of people in D.C. right now who care about a Wisconsin Supreme Court race. But why they all should is that the liberal running for this, Susan Crawford, she participated in a fundraiser with the subject line, "Take back the House majority by winning the Supreme Court."
That's incredible.
That's outrageous.
She's actively participating in fundraisers about how they can gerrymander 2 congressional seats, Wisconsin 1 and Wisconsin 3, for the Democrats to take away the House majority. I mean, if anyone here cares about the America First agenda of Trump getting his agenda done, they have to care about the Supreme Court race, because if we lose, that House majority is gone.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. And Democrats are, of course, very good at stealing elections. But the one thing that Republicans do better than them is turn out voters. And what I want to ask you about, Megan, is something that's on my mind. The last few midterms, Republicans have been on the ballot without President Trump's name on the ballot. And now you have a Supreme Court race that is not even in a midterm. It's just sort of in the middle of nowhere. And I'm wondering what sort of things you guys are doing to make sure that that Trump vote turns out, these rural voters who care about America first. And I know that you're hitting a lot of doors, and AFP is just legendary in their ability to do that sort of thing. But what are you guys doing to make sure that people are aware in Wisconsin and are coming out to vote in such an important election?
The number one thing is we didn't pack up our bags and go home after the November election. We took 2 weeks, little 2-week break, and then we were right back out on doors talking about the Supreme Court race. So when the Trump victory was fresh in everyone's minds, we were out there talking to them directly about, okay, here's the next election you have to care about, because it didn't end on November 5th for everyone. There's so much at stake in this election. And so we've reached almost 300,000 voters directly since before Thanksgiving last year, and we'll be through it April 1st, which is Election Day, because of course it's on April Fool's Day. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you put the future of Wisconsin and the future of country on April Fool's Day? It feels pretty ironic. But we'll be out there every single day until then, because we know those voters are going to be more likely to turn out if we're able to talk to them face to face.
So who's our guy?
Brad Schimmel is our guy.
Brad Schimmel is our guy. Good dude.
Great dude.
And obviously fits along the lines of somebody who's going to interpret law, somebody who follows the law, has respect for the law, is not interested in running for the Supreme Court in order to overturn majorities in Congress, as his opponent is.
Maybe you should run. That was a great pitch. No, Brad is, I mean, he really true. Like, he's a good guy, which helps in Wisconsin. We like super authentic, real people when we elect candidates. We don't want a fake person coming in and carpetbagging or anything like that. We want the guy that passes the beer test so we can sit at the bar and have our Miller Lite with.
There's no question about that, by the way.
That's right.
My experience as a Minnesotan with Wisconsin's the beer test, very important.
It's very important.
Very important.
Very important. And he passes it. I mean, not only was he a district attorney, Wisconsin attorney general, a circuit court judge, but he's in a rock cover band. He plays bass.
Yeah, there he is.
He's
a dude.
Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like for a Wisconsin dad, he's kind of a cool guy, and he's super relatable, and people want that. Like they don't want some stuffy,
stiff,
talking down to you, condescending person like his opponent is. They want someone they can relate to, and that's
Meanwhile,
Brad Schimmel.
His opponent is like spending all their time trying to figure out how to facilitate Soros prosecutors, overturn House majorities. Voter ID is something that's come up in her past.
Voter ID, Act 10, the big labor reform, if you remember the huge protests in Wisconsin, 100,000 protesters, which I think they call that an insurrection now, but 100,000 protesters in Wisconsin in 2011. The reform that took back collective bargaining from public sector unions actually saved our state from becoming Illinois. She argued against it, tried to overturn it in the courts because she's that radical.
So this is a dyed-in-the-wool progressive leftist.
Full Dane County, absolute progressive, like hold nothing back. That is who she is.
What's her deal on voter ID? She's just against it. She doesn't want legitimacy in our elections.
I mean, she argues that it suppresses voters. Interestingly enough, our really good partner in state, Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, they just released a report, academic research paper that shows that there's absolutely no negative impact on turnout for states that pass voter ID. And it's possible that it actually increases turnout because, it gives people faith in their elections and that their vote is actually going to count.
Yeah. I mean, look, it doesn't come as news to us. The only people left in the world who think that voter ID is somehow a suppression device are the very progressive leftists who are just off the left-hand side of the map.
It's people trying to cheat.
Yeah.
It is people trying to cheat. They're trying to get away with something because, you get on a train, you have to show your ID. You go to a high school football game, you have to show your ID to get your tickets. You go to the hospital, you have to show your ID. Why can't you?
My understanding is to go to this debate that they're having.
Got to show an ID.
Got to show an
ID. Oh, you're
kidding.
To go to the debate, you have to show your ID. And she's like, no, you can't show your ID at the polling location.
Yeah, I wonder why. It's interesting, right?
Great judge.
I like to call her Chameleon Crawford. She does a really good job pretending to be a moderate. If you watch her ads, she's like, I'm tough on crime. I'm law enforcement's choice. She's endorsed by one sheriff, maybe two. I don't want to discount her. Maybe it's two at this point. Brad Schimmel's endorsed by 80. Tell me who's the law enforcement candidate. It's Brad Schimmel.
Yeah, right. So if you're in Wisconsin, you got to get activated on this thing. You got to get involved. But even if you're in, anywhere, you should probably get in touch. Where do they go for you to help garner resources or people who want to volunteer time?
Absolutely. AFPWisconsin.com. AFPWisconsin.com is the best place to get in touch with us. You can fill out the form directly. I want to help Brad Schimmel get elected or something along those lines. And we'll get in touch with you right away to figure out how you can get the resources you need to. If you're in Wisconsin, you can come out and knock doors with us. If you're out of Wisconsin, even making phone calls, talking to any family and friends that you have in Wisconsin, knowing what's at stake, it's super important. And that's the best way to reach us.
Yeah.
And this is about keeping the ball rolling, too, right? I mean, we've had a lot of momentum coming out of November. The left, if you look at nationally, they're basically trying to swing at every pitch. Every single thing, they're like, well, this is the thing, right? The Department of Education, USAID, shutting down the government, whatever it is that they come up with, they're like, this is the thing. But if they win a Supreme Court race in a very critical swing state, this is what they're going to build momentum on.
I mean, it's why George Soros and Reid Hoffman and J.B. Pritzker are dumping millions into this race. They know that this is the litmus test to finally mobilize the left because from what I can see in Wisconsin, they're still pretty heartbroken. They did all of their scream fests at Lake Michigan and whatever else after the election, but they are struggling to find a message that unites them and sticks, and they're they're batting under 100 at this point. Like they're missing every single pitch
good.
coming their way.
It ain't good, but we got to finish the job. The election is on April 1.
Yes.
So we've got a critical few weeks here to make a big difference.
Yep, you can do a lot in a couple weeks here. Early voting starts March 18th, and so that's really when the rubber hits the road of making sure we're turning out every single bread Schimmel voter that we can once early voting starts and through Election Day.
Well, listen, Megan Novak, thank you for the good work that you're doing. Thanks for keeping us updated. We'll obviously watch the results, but let's talk more about this as it goes. If you're successful on this deal, this is going to be a good example of how we can replicate this nationwide. If we come up short, it's going to be a good reminder to an awful lot of people of why you got to pay attention all the time, because it has critical impact on the whole country. Just this little Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. So, Megan, thank you for sharing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
She's so good, and this is something that everybody needs to focus on. I mean, we cannot sleep our way through this race because it will have real consequences if Republicans don't win.
These things are going to come up.
National news is great, and we love what happens here in D.C. when Donald Trump's in charge. But there's stuff that happens in the states that's very important, so I'm glad we were able to highlight it.
May have a definitive impact on the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
And if you're interested in having the last 2 years of this Trump administration look like the last 2 years of his previous administration, pay attention. Pay attention. They're nothing but impeachments and all kinds of nonsense if you don't focus on things like the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. Thank you, Megan, for all of that. Remember, our question of the day, folks, are Democrats really going to shut this thing down? I don't know. But your answers will help guide us on all of that. And also throw in a little discussion about whether or not we think the Ruthless Variety fellas.
Tell Donald Trump to give us his Tesla. We're good guys.
Maybe we could take that for a spin, huh?
Yeah.
So throw that in there, too. With that, fellas, I think we've done it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much, Megan Novak, and thank you so much to our listeners. Remember, if you have not yet, hit that like and subscribe on YouTube. It's more fun in video. So until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you Tuesday. Stay ruthless.